Hello, welcome to today's HR Huddle. I'm Tamera Loerzel, and with me is Jennifer Wilson. And we hope you all had a great holiday weekend. It's officially mid-year into the second half of 2025. I know when I said it to Jen, she was like, no. And we thought we should stop and pause and talk about where we are from the first half of the year. And we talked to you at the beginning of the year and the talent leaders and HR professionals and others, leading any people initiatives to say, what are your priorities for 2025? And it's probably time to stop and reassess and say, what have we progressed? What's changed? What are we going to continue? What do we maybe need to reset expectations around? And what does the second half of 2025 look like around your talent and people strategies? So it's maybe sometimes hard to pause and do this. We just want to continue to plow with our list. But we know we have to stop and reassess and say, what does our second half look like? And what are the priorities, that we need to be focusing on? And what does that do to what we thought we were going to be focusing on? So we just wanted to encourage you all to stop and do the same. You might do it for your people, by the way, just as a side note, just stop and assess where are we from any goals that we set or any individual, people goals or any individual or any, department goals, anything like that. It's just really a good time to stop, and it's worthwhile and healthy to do that. So that's what we thought we would talk about today. Jen, anything you want to add to that, or any place you want to start in particular?
I think I just think that we'll talk about, like, if we were HR leaders or talent leaders, you don't have to be an HR, you're a talent person. Inside a firm, what would you prioritize for the second half of 25?
Yes.
Like, you have this chance to get centered. And so one thing that we would prioritize based on all the feedback that we're getting from talent and all the people we meet is feedback. So, this is a good time of year to stop and evaluate how are people doing inside our different service lines, operational areas, departments, however you organize. And are we prioritizing not just formal feedback, but informal feedback? If your organization does performance reviews in June or whatever, you might have just done the big feedback cycle. So you can daydream a little bit during this. But if you haven't had a formal cycle, or you haven't gone through informal reminder, your people really want to know, how am I doing? What could I do better? Keep on doing what you're doing, or that kind of stuff doesn't work. They want specifics. They want to know what they're doing well, and they want to know what they need to do better. And it demonstrates care and interest in them, and they appreciate it. And so we would just strongly encourage, through the next 90 days, before we hit another wave of peak period work, that we stop and spend a few minutes giving feedback. And as a talent leader, if I'm in an HR department, that includes to my HR people, my talent people, stop and give feedback and get feedback. Tell them what they could stop and start doing, and ask them, how can I help you? What could I do differently? How could I improve? That sort of stuff. So that would be one of my priorities coming into the second half.
I love that. And I think that is something we're hearing from people a lot in our leadership programs and just in our coaching programs is, I want more specificity on feedback, and more clarity about what it takes to progress. So all of those, tie together. And I'm going to go to the flip side of that, Jen, and say, I think another thing to focus on is, if we have people that are not working out, we do what we need to do to put them either on a performance plan or let them go if we're at that point. I do think the firms that we're talking to, talent leaders and HR professionals, are maybe getting a little bit more confident than in the recent past, a little bit more courage to make some of those hard decisions. They're getting better at documenting things, getting better at, saying it's not working, maybe not feeling so constrained. Maybe that's why, because it's a little, we've been saying, the market's a little spongy right now, and maybe we feel a little bit of space in our talent and capacity. So we have more courage to do it. But if there's anything to do around there, don't, hang on to your lowest common denominator that is going to demotivate your highest performers. They will respect and appreciate when you do manage to the highest expectations. And I know it takes something to rearrange work and clients, and we're always worried about that. But you will be better off when you do that, and your people will appreciate it. Your good people will really appreciate it when you do that.
Well, so true, Tamara, and so hard.
Yes.
Inertia is powerful, and we could just sort of keep floating on the river, of putting up with some stuff from people, whether it's poor performance or poor mindset, behavioral stuff. But this is a good time to trim some of that out and reinvent. Reinvent. So another thing that I wanted to bring up, and this is going to slightly, I don't know, maybe twist our heads. It's not totally talenty, but it totally affects talent. And I'm concerned that we're not paying attention to what's happening in the marketplace related to AI and its direct relationship to pricing. Or indirect. I don't know if you would call it a direct relationship, but so as an HR professional or a talent leader, we need to start encouraging all the people in the entire firm to stop using the word time, even if we still keep time, okay. Even if we still report on time and we have goals on time and all that, you can use time internally and quietly, but stop using it externally. Don't let people say to clients, well, that'll take about 6 hours, so that'll cost you this much. We need to stop pricing based on time. We need to stop using time to educate our clients about how we work and what we do. We need to think more about fixed pricing, and we need to price more on value, and we need to price more on risk to us to deliver that service, and not based on time, because time is getting stripped out of our work by AI, by automation. To some degree, the cost of our time is getting stripped by offshoring. And as it becomes less time intensive to do the work, we think it should suddenly be less valuable or less expensive. And I saw a troubling article. Bloomberg, I think, published that the PwC was saying for some of their consulting services, they're going to start charging less because AI is making research so much easier. And I was like, what? First of all, you have to check the research. You have to check your AI output. It's not yet fail proof. That's number one. There's still hopefully fact checking happening and resource checking and referential checking. But second, who cares if it strips the time out of the research? You still have to take the research and come to some conclusions and provide some advice. And the advice has risk. And the client has risk accepting your advice. You have risk giving it. And the cost or price of that should not be less. The value, the difference the client can make with it. Now, some might say, well, the client can use AI to get the same research. That's fine. They can do that. But they're still coming to us for advice or strategy or tactics or support. Sometimes, anyway, I just think it's crazy to think that stripping time should mean everything gets cheaper. And I was so sad to see that. I mean, like, possibly a little heartbreak and a mistake, I feel. I'm sorry, PwC. You're the first person I've seen do it. You might not be the first people that did it. So anybody who's going to strip price because of AI breaks my heart, because I still think in our business we have professional judgment and we have real risk on the positions that we take, and those have value.
And we have the investment in the technology. Our technology costs are, skyrocketing.
And so, training. And learning. And all of that.
And, so, yeah.
Just because it takes less time. So also billing off WIP. No, no. So talent people, why is that important to you? Because you set the tone, you help with orientation, you help with messages, get your timesheets filled out and all that stuff. You might be part of that. You certainly know that there are time-based goals in a lot of the firms. how can you help start to sensitize leadership first, that this over dependence and over communication on it is going to actually cause our fees to slip? Like we're devaluing our fees, our value. We're causing it to be cheapened.
Right.
And so we just think that you should be sensitive to that and start like masterminding a plan to not let your firm do that.
Yes. Well, and I'll follow you right there on time. I think one of the things to look at is adding measures of success beyond time. And I only say beyond time because I know most firms are still tracking time. And so we'll continue to do that. At the same time, though, we need to start looking at productivity, output, deliverables, results, and measuring on that, not just time in, which is input. It's an input versus an output. We need to have output measures. So we can look at number of individual tax returns, prepared, and we could even, have them on an ABC or complexity level of some kind, or a number of audit components, or if I'm in CAS, number of payroll clients I manage, or like that, so that we can start to see what their output and their deliverables are on a weekly, monthly, whatever basis that it might be. And then also looking at things like revenue per person. And, we can look at net revenue by clients and see the increase of that. If I'm a client owner, I should be responsible for increasing that over time, net of any losses.
Yes.
Be looking at, net revenue per partner. And net revenue per equity partner is often what the benchmarks, are looking at, but you also want to look at it. What is it for per partner if you have income partners? So, those are some just measures and metrics that we need to be looking at that go beyond time, that start to look at different results in a different way for leadership to be managing the business. And then it gives you stats as talent leaders, is that you can start to look at where do we need to be with our people as you're planning capacity and hiring and, deploying people. We can start to look at that, that kind of information that maybe we have not been traditionally, because we've been focused on time-based measures, chargeable hours, total hours, realization, utilization, all of that's input-based. And I can put anything you want in the time system. I know that's cynical, but we can mess around with that and make it look good. And instead we want to say, we want actually good results instead of measuring on that. So that's, if you haven't been doing that, that's something to take a look at. We've got some articles we've written about it, and, some examples of what those metrics are beyond what I just said. But I think that is something else where time gets us in trouble. It constrains us. And we just want to start to elevate people's, looking at that.
I agree. So another one that I want to talk about is, this is a really good time to look at your map, your talent map, and say, where will we have some succession gaps? And also, where are we trying to grow? What are our growth strategies, our business development and growth strategies? And where are we lacking key talent to fuel those? And go in the marketplace and start taking that talent from destabilized organizations in our profession, because there's a bunch of them. I think almost any organization that's taken on PE money or is participating in a multi-firm roll-up kind of deal, the talent within those organizations is likely to be a little less stable than they've been. And, like we hear all the time, like, everybody wants a real estate tax person, everybody, and then depending on where you're located, you might want a cross-border expert or a state and local expert. Everybody needs a state and trust, for crying out loud. I'm picking on tax right now to some degree, but there's these specialties and key roles that are coming up due to retirements, but they're also happening because we're getting bigger clients and we're dealing with more complex issues, and we might not have the talent in-house yet to address some of these opportunities that the market holds. And a state and trust, for instance, is an unlimited market opportunity for every firm in this country because of the number of baby boomers that are aging into that realm and haven't yet addressed it fully. And And so anyway, if I'm an HR leader, I'm building a talent map and figuring out where my holes are and building a recruiting plan to encourage experienced hires who are not happy where they are to come to my organization instead.
Yes.
So that would be another second half game plan for me.
Yes. And while we're looking at succession, I think we also have to, succession and talent map, we have to look at our clients and say, who are our ideal clients? Who do we want to be serving, going forward? Who should we not be serving? Because the ideal time to transition or call clients is during succession planning. And instead of, filling up our high potential new partners or senior managers with clients that are transitioning from retirees, we need to stop and back up and say, does this make sense for the business going forward and for us to fill up this individual who's probably pretty close to full, if not full already anyway, and identify those clients we want to call. And I know that's sensitive, especially for the retiree who's probably had some of those clients for 30 or 40 years. And so we need to, find a great way to take care of those clients. We want to be, really great about it when we do. Our communications need to be pristine and reviewed and thought through. We need to look at the financial side or impact to the retiree. So there's a lot that goes into that. It's not as clean cut as assess your clients and determine what it is. We realize that, but it is the time. And that's why we need at least a 2-year, if not 3-year transition period, so that we can identify that and figure out what the different, ramifications are of calling clients and work on our communications, work on our strategy. And there's a domino effect. Any of those clients that are transitioning from the retirees, going to a newer partner or a senior manager, they need to be able to transition as well. So we need to think through it all the way down the line, and not just that immediate retiree. And by the way, somebody needs to look at all your retirees, because if you have more than one person retiring and somebody's not managing that, guess who we're going to give all our clients to? The best person. And it's the same person. And Jen and I and Samantha all give the clients to Emily because we love Emily. And we can't do that either. So somebody needs to be managing the, succession plan and, really assessing it and determining what kind of impact it's having to our people as you plan capacity for your people.
Yeah. And Tamera, we're hearing so much of that and people sort of winging it.
Yes.
And winging client transition or worse, sort of leaving it up to people to do it in a silo. Hey, Bob, you figure out who you're going to transition all your clients to all by yourself over there. And then we'll all deal with the ramifications of that when Susan goes out, or when Mario leaves,
or when Bob leaves and we find out no transition happened.
Yeah, true. So we do see a lot of that. And it's weird because this is a perfect example of a place where as HR leaders or talent capable people that are tuned in here, we have to deal with some awkward conversations there. We can't let people have their own way. We can't we can't step over stuff like there isn't transition happening, but everyone's pretending there is, and Tamera and I get into these organizations sometimes and they're like, I don't know if Sue or Jim is going out first. I think odds are that Jim is, and somebody said he might go next year, we're like, what? Wait a minute. This is a life of the business strategic issue, man. We can't be handicapping and having a side pool. We need to actually declare retirement dates and make, corporate strategies around this transition. So I love that. I love that as an HR priority. So another thing to be thinking about is how we doing with comp. And certainly, one of my monumental life's work projects in this profession was the National Pipeline Advisory Group work. And we certainly studied pipeline issues causing people not to choose a career in accounting and said, hey, man, we all need to increase starting salaries. We're not competitive with other business majors, and we're not competitive with other majors that would lure an accounting grad away. And we gotta pay more when they get out of school. And I do think the needle is moving there, but please stop and download that report from accountingpipeline.org and look at the charts and read about starting salaries and make sure that your organization is figuring out a way to smooth starting salaries, get them up If that means that we can't have as big a jump between senior and manager and you have to smooth that out, do that. But let's evaluate how we're doing on pay, please, because you might say, as Tamara said, market's a little spongy. It feels a little bit softer talent-wise. Now people aren't moving like they were. They're all wondering, are we going to have a recession? What's going to happen? We might feel a little bit talent rich right now, but in the long haul, on the long run, we've got a demographic problem in the country. We don't have enough working age people coming up into the working age category of 24 to 64. Accounting has got to attract more than our fair share, and we've been attracting a declining number. So we've got to do things as a talent group in accounting to attract people to this. So look at starting salaries, and then I'll also say, let's all look really hard at the second half of this year about the story we're telling about what it is like to work at our firm, what makes us unique, special, and different. How can we reinforce those differentiators? What are we grateful for at work? What are the cool experiences and things that we've had? I got to speak at the AICPA Engage this year, and we talked about employer strategies. And one of the things we all sort of agreed in this big room with a bunch of people was, man, we focus on problems. We're so good at it. And we don't have enough people, and technology is so hard to keep up with, and whatever, busy seasons, we love to throw that one in. Hours worked, I walked up uphill both ways, all that stuff. We do that, and we don't say, wow, this is one of the most fulfilling things. I'm my clients are so amazing. I love working with them. I got to work on this project that changed my life. I'm making more money than I ever thought possible. I'm so challenged, and I'm constantly learning, and I feel so connected, and compare myself to peers, and they're not talking about the things we are in accounting. There's so much cool stuff, and we just don't talk about it. So something else for talent leaders to look at. How can we make sure to amplify the good inside, which helps with retention and helps with mission and ministry and inspiration and the love of our work, which we should all be working toward having more of, joy, but also it will attract more people into our profession if we stop just, my mom called it playing the game of ain't it awful. And man, we're really good at that.
Which is sad when there is so much good. There's no better time to be in accounting than right now. So it's awesome. Well, we hope that helped you with your list. And we'd love feedback from you about what your priorities are, any you're choosing from our list or any that were not on our list. We'd love to know what you are focusing on. So reach out to us in social or an email and let us know, drop us a note. And we hope you have a great rest of your week. And we'll see you on the next HR Huddle. Thank you very much.
Thanks all.